June 15, 2024, Millbrook, Pennsylvania. A picturesque town of 3,200 people gathers in the town square to celebrate their 150th anniversary by opening a time capsule buried in 1874. The mayor's shovel breaks through the rusted metal box, and excited children press closer to see what treasures their ancestors left behind. Letters from the past, photographs of long-dead residents, and artifacts from a simpler time. But buried beneath the innocent memorabilia is something that was never meant to be found. Something that reveals a truth so horrifying, it will destroy the reputation of Millbrook's most beloved founding family and expose a cover-up that has lasted for 150 years. Because sometimes the past refuses to stay buried. And sometimes what we celebrate as history is actually evidence of murder. Millbrook, Pennsylvania sits in the heart of Amish country, surrounded by rolling hills and farmland that hasn't changed much since the 1800s. With its tree-lined main street, white-steepled church, and Victorian homes, Millbrook looks like it was lifted straight from a Norman Rockwell painting. It's the kind of town where everyone knows everyone, where doors are left unlocked, and where the biggest scandal is usually who forgot to bring a casserole to the church potluck. The town was founded in 1874 by the Whitmore family, English immigrants who purchased 2,000 acres and established what would become the most prosperous farming community in Lancaster County. Thomas Whitmore and his wife Eleanor built the first house, the first store, and the first church. Their 5 children grew up to become the pillars of the community: doctors, teachers, business owners, and civic leaders. For 150 years, the Whitmore name has been synonymous with everything good about Millbrook. The main street is called Whitmore Avenue. The elementary school is Whitmore Elementary. The town's largest park is Whitmore Memorial Park. But as the residents of Millbrook were about to discover, the family they had honored for a century and a half had built their legacy on lies, murder, and a secret so dark it had been buried, literally. The idea for the time capsule ceremony came from current Mayor Patricia Holmes, a direct descendant of the Whitmore family and proud keeper of the town's historical traditions. Mayor Holmes had spent months planning the perfect sesquicentennial celebration. There would be period costumes, historical reenactments, and traditional crafts demonstrations. But the centerpiece would be the opening of the time capsule that Thomas Whitmore had buried in the town square exactly 150 years earlier. According to town records, Thomas Whitmore had buried the capsule as a gift to future generations with instructions that it should only be opened on the town's 150th anniversary. June 15, 2024, 2 p.m. Over 1,000 people gather in Millbrook's town square. Descendants of founding families, local historians, news crews from 3 counties, and curious visitors who drove hours to witness this piece of living history. Mayor Holmes, wearing a Victorian-era dress that had belonged to Eleanor Whitmore herself, addresses the crowd. Today we honor the vision and sacrifice of our founding families. Thomas and Eleanor Whitmore left us this gift from the past, a connection to the brave souls who built this community with their own hands and their unwavering faith. The crowd erupts in applause as volunteers carefully excavate the buried metal box, measuring 2 feet by 1 foot by 1 foot, exactly where the town records indicated it would be. But as the rusted lock is broken and the lid is pried open, Mayor Holmes' expression of joy slowly transforms into one of horror. The first items removed from the time capsule seem perfectly normal. A leather-bound Bible belonging to Eleanor Whitmore. A daguerreotype photograph of the 5 Whitmore children. A hand-drawn map of the original town layout. The crowd oohs and ahs as each artifact is carefully lifted from the capsule and displayed. Local historian Dr. Sarah Mitchell provides commentary, explaining the significance of each item to the gathered families. But then, wrapped in oilcloth at the very bottom of the capsule, Mayor Holmes finds something that makes her gasp and nearly drop the artifact. A leather journal, perfectly preserved, with "Property of Thomas Whitmore Private" embossed on the cover. And inside that journal, written in fading ink, is a confession that will shatter everything Millbrook thought it knew about its history. Mayor Holmes tries to close the journal and set it aside, but Dr. Mitchell, unaware of what's inside, insists on reading portions aloud to the crowd. What she reads stops the celebration cold. June 10, 1874. Today I did what had to be done. The Brennan family will never return to claim the land I rightfully purchased. Their bodies rest where no one will ever find them, and their children. God forgive me, but the children saw too much. The crowd falls silent. Children stop playing. News cameras zoom in. Mayor Holmes looks like she's going to be sick. But Dr. Mitchell continues reading, unaware that she's exposing a 150-year-old mass murder. As Dr. Mitchell continues reading from Thomas Whitmore's journal, the horrifying truth about Millbrook's founding emerges. The Brennan family arrived from Ireland with legal documents claiming ownership of the land I had already purchased and settled. They insisted their claim was legitimate, that they had been cheated by a fraudulent land agent. What the journal reveals is that both families had been sold the same land by two different agents working a scam that was common in the 1870s. But instead of working out a legal solution, Thomas Whitmore chose murder. June 8, 1874, 2 days before the massacre. The journal describes Thomas Whitmore's growing paranoia about the Brennan family's legal claim. Patrick Brennan has documentation that predates mine by 3 months. If this goes to court, I will lose everything. My family will be homeless, ruined, destroyed. I cannot let that happen. June 9th, 1874, the night before the murders. Thomas Whitmore enlists his 3 oldest sons ages 19, 17, and 15 in his plan. The boys understand what must be done. We are protecting our family, our future. The Brennan family has no ties to this community, no one who will come looking for them. They will simply disappear. June 10, 1874, the day of the massacre. The journal provides horrifying details of how the Whitmore men murdered Patrick and Molly Brennan and their 4 children, ages 12, 10, 8, and 6. The Brennans were invited to dinner to discuss a peaceful resolution to their land dispute. Instead, they were poisoned with arsenic mixed into their meal, then beaten to death to ensure they were dead. But the most chilling part of the journal describes what happened to the Brennan children. The children tried to run when they saw their parents collapse. My sons caught them before they reached the road. We could not risk them telling anyone what they had witnessed. They are buried with their parents in the old well behind the house. As Dr. Mitchell continues reading Thomas Whitmore's journal to the stunned crowd, the scope of the cover-up becomes clear. Thomas Whitmore didn't act alone. The journal implicates several other founding families who helped dispose of the bodies and create false documents to support Whitmore's legal claim to the land. June 12, 1874. James Morton and William Hayes helped us fill in the old well. We planted Eleanor's garden over the spot. No one will ever think to dig there. The Brennan family simply never existed. But Thomas Whitmore's journal reveals an even more disturbing truth. This wasn't his first murder. Earlier entries described the death of a traveling merchant who had witnessed the land fraud, and a Native American family who had been camping on the disputed property. The Indian family understood the land better than any of us. They knew where the good water was, where the soil was richest. But they also knew too much about my dealings with the land agents. They rest now beneath what will become our church. The journal indicates that Thomas Whitmore murdered at least 12 people in establishing his claim to Millbrook, with the help of other founding families who were promised prime land in exchange for their silence and assistance. But perhaps the most shocking revelation is saved for the final entries. I bury this journal as insurance. If anyone in my family ever betrays our secret, if anyone ever tries to claim moral superiority over what we built here, they will find this record of the truth. We are all guilty. We are all murderers. And this town was built on the bones of the innocent. As Dr. Mitchell finishes reading, the crowd of 1,000 people stands in stunned silence. Children are crying. Adults are staring at each other with suspicion and horror. Because everyone in Millbrook is descended from either the original founding families, or they're newcomers living on land stolen through mass murder. Within hours of the time capsule revelation, Pennsylvania State Police arrive in Millbrook to begin what would become the largest historical criminal investigation in state history. Detective Lieutenant Maria Santos, a specialist in cold cases and forensic archaeology, takes charge of the investigation. Her first challenge: determining whether Thomas Whitmore's journal entries were true or the fabrications of a disturbed mind. June 16th, ground-penetrating radar is brought in to scan the area behind the original Whitmore house, now the site of Millbrook Elementary School. The radar immediately detects anomalies in the ground, large objects buried in what would have been the location of the old well described in the journal. June 18th, excavation begins in the school playground. What investigators find confirms Thomas Whitmore's confession in horrifying detail. 6 skeletal remains, including 4 children, are recovered from what was once a well. The remains show signs of blunt force trauma consistent with the journal's description. DNA analysis of the remains confirms they belong to a family of Irish descent, matching the description of the Brennan family. But the investigation doesn't stop there. June 25th, radar scanning beneath St. Mary's Church, the same church built on land Thomas Whitmore claimed from the Native American family, reveals 3 more bodies. The skeletal remains include 2 adults and 1 child, all showing evidence of violent death. Forensic analysis confirms they are of Native American ancestry. As news of the discovery spreads, Millbrook becomes the center of a media firestorm. News crews from across the country descend on the small town to cover what reporters are calling America's hidden genocide. The discovery of multiple murder victims beneath Millbrook's most sacred spaces tears the community apart in ways no one could have anticipated. Descendants of the founding families find themselves divided into 2 camps: those who want to acknowledge the truth and make amends, and those who insist the journal must be a fake designed to destroy their family legacies. Mayor Patricia Holmes, whose great-great-great-grandmother Eleanor Whitmore had been complicit in the murders, faces calls for her resignation and death threats from both sides. "My family has lived with this secret for 150 years, not knowing the truth about how our prosperity was built. I am sickened by what my ancestors did, and I am committed to making whatever amends are possible." But not everyone agrees with Mayor Holmes' position. Robert Whitmore III, Thomas Whitmore's direct descendant and owner of Millbrook's largest farm, files a lawsuit claiming the journal is a forgery designed to steal his family's land. "My great-great-great-grandfather was a God-fearing man who built this community through hard work and faith. I will not allow his good name to be destroyed by fabricated evidence." The conflict escalates when forensic handwriting analysis confirms that the journal entries were indeed written by Thomas Whitmore, using ink and paper consistent with the 1870s. Property records from Pennsylvania State Archives corroborate the journal's claims about fraudulent land sales and document forgeries. Most damaging of all, genealogical research confirms that the Brennan family did indeed exist, had purchased land in Pennsylvania, and then completely disappeared from all historical records in 1874. While Thomas Whitmore and his accomplices are long dead, their crimes still demand justice. September 15th, 2024, 3 months after the time capsule opening, Pennsylvania Governor Rebecca Martinez announces the creation of the Millbrook Victims Memorial Fund. The fund, supported by donations from the Whitmore family descendants and the sale of disputed properties, will provide reparations to surviving members of the Brennan family and local Native American tribes. Genealogical research has identified 47 living descendants of Patrick Brennan's extended family in Ireland and Boston, none of whom knew what had happened to their American relatives. October 31, 2024, the Brennan family remains are laid to rest in a ceremony attended by hundreds of their newly discovered descendants. November 15, 2024, Millbrook officially renames its main street from Whitmore Avenue to Brennan Way. The Whitmore Elementary School becomes the Millbrook Community School, and a memorial garden is planted where the victims' bodies were discovered. But perhaps the most significant change is the new time capsule that Mayor Holmes buries in the town square. This time capsule contains the truth about our town's founding, both the horrible crimes and our efforts to make amends. Future generations will know the complete story, not just the version that makes us comfortable. Today, Millbrook, Pennsylvania looks much the same as it did before June 15, 2024. The same tree-lined streets, the same Victorian houses, the same rolling farmland. But everything is different now. The town that once celebrated its perfect past now grapples with the reality that their prosperity was built on mass murder and genocide. Thomas Whitmore's time capsule was meant to preserve his family's legacy for future generations. Instead, it exposed their crimes and brought justice to victims who had been forgotten for 150 years. The investigation into Millbrook's founding crimes established a new precedent for addressing historical injustices. Communities across America are now re-examining their own founding stories, wondering what dark secrets might be buried beneath their own town squares. The Brennan family murders remind us that history is written by the victors, but sometimes the truth refuses to stay buried. That communities built on lies and violence carry that poison forward through generations. And that sometimes the past reaches out from beyond the grave to demand justice. Thomas Whitmore thought he was leaving a gift for future generations. Instead, he left evidence of his own crimes. Because the truth has a way of surviving, even when it's buried beneath 150 years of lies. The time capsule that was supposed to celebrate Millbrook's perfect past instead revealed that there is no perfect past, only the truth we're brave enough to face. If this story of historical justice and long-buried secrets captivated you, subscribe to Crime Uncover for more investigations that prove the past is never really past, and that justice has no statute of limitations. Because sometimes, the most shocking crimes are the ones that have been hiding in plain sight for generations.